In this video, I'll be discussing the second question of JEE Advanced 2025 paper 1, Maths second question. So in the last video, I have discussed the first question. So in the similar way, I'll also upload the videos for the upcoming questions, the next questions in the upcoming videos. So in this video, we'll discuss the second question. So three students, so it's a probability based question. So we were given like three events and we are asked to find the probability of the fourth event. So let's see those events. The events are, so there are three students. Those three students are given a problem to solve. So the first event is that at least one of the students like S1, S2, S3 can solve the problem. And the second event is only S1 can solve, but neither S2 nor S3 can solve the problem. And in the third case, in the third event, like S2 can solve the problem and S3 cannot solve the problem. And in the fourth event, S3 can only solve the problem. So, I mean, like probability that S3 can solve the problem is what we are required to find. So, like if we consider the first one, so probability of U. So that means like at least one of S1 or S2 or S3 is solving. So that is like we can write it as S1 is solving or S2 is solving or S3 is solving. So if one of those S1 or S2 or S3 is solving, like we already have this thing. So union, we use it for OR condition, and intersection, we use it for AND condition. So here like we're having OR conditions. So essentially they're saying that P of U, the probability of event U is just probability of S1 union, S2 union, S3. And in the similar way, so basically this thing is probability of S1 union, S2 union, S3. So in the same way, if you see the second equation, a second event, so S1 can solve the problem. So that means so probability of that S1 can solve the problem, given that neither S2 nor S3 can solve the problem. So that means S1 given S2 union S3 whole complement. So basically S2 is not solving and S3 is not solving. So this thing they have given it as so that is probability of U, event U, and probability of event V is probability of S1 union S2, S1 given S2 union S3 whole complement. And probability of W, the event W, is that like S2 can solve the problem and S3 cannot solve the problem. So if S2 can solve the problem, that means like S2 can solve the problem, and so it's an AND condition. So whenever I have AND condition, I'm trying to use the intersection. And S3 cannot solve the problem. So if S3 can solve, if S2 can solve the problem, and if S3 cannot solve the problem, so it is like S3 complement. So basically we were given these three equations: probability of S1 union S2 union S3, so that is half, and probability of S1 union S2 union S3 whole complement is 1 by 10, and probability of S2 intersection S3 complement, that is 1 by 12. So U, V, W, so U, probability of U is half, probability of V is 1 by 10, and probability of W is 1 by 2. So now like we can also see like, I mean, these events like S1, S2, S3, they are, the students are given a problem to solve, and like we're considering in our probability setup, like S1, S2, and S3 are nothing but the probability that like P of S1 if we are having, that means probability that student 1 can be able to solve that particular problem, and probability of S2 means probability that student 2 can solve the problem. So in a similar way, we have to find probability of the event T. So for probability of event T, in the sense, probability that S3 can solve the problem. So that means essentially they're asking, so given these three things, they're asking what is probability of S3. And suppose like student 1, student 2, student 3. So these three are like three independent students, like they're not dependent. Like it's not like if S1 is able to do this solve the problem, that doesn't mean S2 won't be able to solve the problem. We don't have anything, any such condition or like any such thing mandatory here. So basically, that essentially means like those three students are not at all linked. Like, I mean, they can have like different intellectual capabilities, or they might have like different way of thinking or different ways to understand things. So it's like completely independent. Like whether like S1 is solving or S2 is solving, like that doesn't matter for S3 to solve a particular problem. So probably S1, S2, and S3 are independent. Now, like if we are having independent events, so that means like we can like, so suppose like if A and B are independent events, if A and B are independent events, then probability of A intersection B is probability of A into probability of B. So we can use this thing. So if you can see, so probability that at least one of the student is solving the problem, so that is given to us as 1 by 2. So that means like this is nothing but like if we use complementary counting, this is nothing but 1 minus probability of none of the students are able to solve the problem. So that means like if none of the students are able to solve the problem, that means S1 is not able to do, and so since it is and, like I'm using intersection again, and S2 is unable to do, and S3 is unable to do. So that means like probability of S1 intersection uh, intersection S2 intersection S3 complement is 1 by 2. And in the similar way, if we try to consider the second, so we are having S2 union S3 whole complement. So this is 1 by 10. So that means probability of S1 intersection S2 union S3 complement divided by probability of S2 union S3 complement is 1 by 10. And if we consider the third case, in the third case, like probability of S2 intersection S3 complement. So that is like 1 by 12. So if we consider the first equation, so we are having S1 complement intersection S2 complement intersection S3 complement. So that means like essentially we were given that probability of S1 complement into probability of S2 complement into probability of S3 complement is 1 by 2, because like S1, S2, S3 are independent events. And in the similar way, if we see the second equation, so that is like probability of S1 intersection S2 complement intersection S3 complement whole divided by probability of S2 complement intersection S3 complement. Because S2 union S3 whole complement, that means S2 union S3 means like either of S2 or S3 is solving the problem. Now complement of S2 union S3 whole complement, that means like neither S2 nor S3 was able to solve the problem. So I have converted S2 union S3 whole complement to S2 complement intersection S3 complement. So that is 1 by 10. And the third equation says probability of S2 into probability of S3 complement is 1 by 12. So if we consider this, the second equation, if we solve, so this is probability of S1 into probability of S2 complement into probability of S3 complement whole divided by probability of S2 complement into probability of S3 complement. So that means like we are getting probability of S1 is 1 by 10. Now like if we substitute the same thing in this, so probability of S1 we are getting 10. So if we substitute that in this first equation, so probability of S2 complement into probability of S3 complement, so that is 1 by 10 uh, into like probability of S1 complement, that will be 1 minus 1 by 10, which is 1 by 2. So that means like probability of S2 complement into probability of S3 complement. So that will be 9 by 10, sorry, 1 by 2 into 10 by 9, which is 5 by 9. So essentially we are having two equations now. So probability of S2 into probability of S3 complement is 1 by 12, and probability of S2 complement into probability of S3 complement is 5 by 9. So if we divide these two equations, so we'll be getting probability of S2 by probability of S2 complement is equals to 1 by 12 into 9 by 5. So that means uh, like we are getting probability of S2 complement by probability of S2 is equals to 5 by 9 into 12, which is 20 by 3. So that means 3 times probability of S2 complement is 20 times probability of S2. So that means 3 minus 3 times probability of S2 is 20 times probability of S2. So we're getting probability of S2. So that means probability that student 2 can solve the problem is 3 by 23. So if probability that S2 can solve the problem is 3 by 23, we already have the equation that probability of S2 into probability of S3 complement is equals to 1 by 12. So this is equals to 1 by 12. So probability of S3 complement will be 1 by 12 into 23 by 3. So that is nothing but 23 by 36. So probability of S3, so that means probability that student S3 would be able to solve the problem is 1 minus 23 by 36, which is 13 by 36. So the key concepts in this particular problem are understanding the AND condition and OR condition, and understanding the conditional probability, and understanding the complementary events. So I'll end this video here. So that's it for today's video. So, and that's the second problem of JEE Advanced 2025.